Welcome to Addicted to Watches. Today, we will be looking at a watch I bought fairly early in my watch journey, and was actually the first dive watch I bought. It is what I consider the precursor to what many call the best valued budget dive watch, the Orient Komatsu. This is the Orient Ray 2. The Orient brand is a Japanese one that caters mainly for the budget end of the market and also happens to be part of the Seiko Epsom group. However, it is run independently to Seiko. Orient is probably one of the best budget brands, offering a wide range of mechanical watches that contain in-house movements, which is not a claim many brands can make. The value that Orient generally offers as a major brand is hard to beat. This Ray 2 is no exception. Situated squarely in one of the most competitive parts of the market, the budget dive watch market, the Ray, in my opinion, is one of the best options outside of AliExpress and micro brands. With an original recommended retail price of $350, it does not seem like it would be. However, it can be found very easily on websites like Germashop and Creation Watches for $150 or even less. For that price, the Ray is a great deal. For a long time before it was discontinued, the Seiko SKX was the go-to choice for a budget dive watch because of its long history, modding options and solid build, as well as having an iconic design. That mantle has now been taken by the Orient Komatsu, as Seiko continue to try and push their prices higher. The Orient Komatsu has many similar qualities to the SKX, but adds to that a hacking, hand-winding movement, as well as possibly the most significant draw, which is a sapphire crystal. Looking a bit more closely at the Komatsu and comparing it with the Ray I have here, we can see that they share the same case, bezel, and polarizing indented bezel insert. The Ray and similar model Mako seem to me to be what the Komatsu was based on. They offer pretty much everything the Komatsu does, bar the sapphire crystal, and come in at an even cheaper price. The Orient Ray is available in a few different color options, and they are very well executed. The one I have here is blue, but there is also a black dial, black bezel version, a PVD black case with matching dial and bezel, and a slightly out there orange dial, black bezel combo. In addition to the Ray, Orient also have the Mako, which is essentially the same watch, except with a different dial and handset. The Mako was also available in a red and blue version called the Pepsi. My favorite color of watches, like many, is blue. I think this Ray has one of the best blue colors around. In my experience, Orient are very good at making blue dials, but in particular, the shade of blue on this Ray and the way the sunburst plays with the light is a real highlight of the watch. It's a rich, deep blue color that is not too saturated or in your face. It's not always easy to make a sunburst dial that comes off as understated, but I really think that this one is. The hour markers are all applied with trapeziums at 12, 6 and 9, and circular indices are everywhere else. At 3 o'clock is the day and date window neatly framed. This functionality combined with the price, water resistance and wearability make it a great everyday watch. The bezel insert surrounding the dial is made of aluminium and is not exactly the perfect circular shape you normally see. At every other 5-minute interval, there is a small indent cut out of the bezel insert. I personally have no issue with it, but was surprised to hear that this puts some people off from this model. I have seen a replacement bezel available to mod this watch, which fits standard SKX inserts, so if you really don't like it, there is always that option. The standard bezel is not the easiest to grip because of the angle of the sloping insert and small area to grip. The bezel on mine in particular is a bit tough to turn because, as you can see from all the scratches, I used this like the tool watch it is. Unlike the SKX, and even many more expensive Seikos, the bezel and chapter ring both align perfectly with the 12 o'clock marker. Looking around the case now, we have a 41.5mm diameter with a thickness of 13mm to the top of a flat mineral crystal and a lug width of 22mm. Lug to lug, this watch measures a very compact 47mm. This really helps it to wear well and hug the wrist when worn. Case finishing is quite simple, but it is what you would expect from a watch at this price. The top surface of the lugs is brushed in a circular pattern, which transitions into polished on the flat sides of the watch. A slightly small, signed screw-down crown is protected by crown guards and helps to provide the watch with 200 meters of water resistance, as advertised on the dial. The case back is a mixture of brushed and polished, and also screws onto the case. Moving on to the bracelet, we'll see the only area where this watch is let down. The bracelet is usually where you see most of the cost savings a brand makes. The first one we can see is the hollow end links. Thankfully, the rest of the links are all solid stainless steel and perfectly fine. The bracelet is a small step up from the basic 3-link, with 2 thin lines of polish running down each side of the center link. To match the finishing on the case, the top surface of the links is brushed and the sides polished. As we go down the bracelet, we come to the other letdown. The clasp you see here is not the original one that came with this watch. The original one was a very cheap feeling pressed clasp, and for about $8 on AliExpress, I bought a milled one to upgrade it. As you can see here, the original clasp was signed with the Orient logo. Being a dive watch, the lume should be decent, and as you can see, while nothing spectacular, it gets the job done and allows you to easily read the time in low light conditions. Now, let's get it on wrist and see how it wears. The compact lug-to-lug of 47mm, combined with the female end links of the bracelet, means it sits on the wrist very nicely, and the slight curve of the lugs also helps it to hug the wrist. The way I would describe the feeling is that the head of the watch has a low center of gravity and sits flat and low on my wrist. Looking at some alternative options, we have this black silicone strap with matching blue accent stitching, and this blue and red striped NATO strap. I've already mentioned 2 things about the bracelet that I don't really like, and fixed one of those issues myself by replacing the clasp. There is one other thing I'm not completely sold on with this watch. The 22mm lug width does not look out of place, but I do wonder what 20mm would have looked like on this watch. The wide bracelet means it wears a little bigger than it actually is. Keeping 22mm, maybe adding a bit more taper to the bracelet would balance it better. As it is, there is only a small amount of taper from that first link as it leaves the case. However, considering comparatively how little you pay for the watch in the first place, these shortcomings are easily forgiven. I really enjoy wearing this watch, and as you can see from the scratches it's covered in, I've definitely put the watch through its paces. It has survived everything I've thrown at it, and is still ticking along just fine. It's an easy recommendation to anyone who is just getting into watches and wants a good-looking, reliable, mechanical dive watch, or even for a seasoned collector who just wants something fun and reliable to wear that won't break the bank. What do you think about this watch? Do you have this or another Orient watch? Would you pay the extra for the Komatsu with sapphire crystal? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time. You may have also noticed a few slight changes in the way the video was presented, and also hopefully an improvement in the audio quality. Let me know what you think of these changes and whether you would like to see them going forward, as well as other changes too.